Do you know what carbohydrates do in our body? Well, carbohydrates are one of the three main types of nutrients our body needs to function properly. They're key sources of energy, just like petrol is for cars. They're made up of smaller units, sugars, starches, and fibers, which are found in fruits, grains, vegetables, and milk products. The term carbohydrate comes from carbon and hydrate, indicating a compound containing carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. They're primarily made of carbon and water, and that's where their name comes from. And where do we get them? Carbohydrates are generously present in our daily diet. They're in the rice we eat, the bread we toast, the pasta we love, and the cookies we can't resist. Carbohydrates are crucial. They're not just fillers in our food. They have a significant role to play. Now that we have an idea about carbohydrates, let's delve deeper into their functions. So, why are carbohydrates crucial for our body, you may ask? Well, let's dive into their functions. First and foremost, carbohydrates serve as the body's main source of energy. Think of them as fuel, like petrol for a car. When you consume carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into simple sugars that are absorbed into the bloodstream. As the sugar levels rise in your body, the pancreas releases insulin, which is needed to move sugar from the blood into the cells where it can be used as a source of energy. But the role of carbohydrates doesn't stop there. They also play a crucial role in regulating blood glucose, maintaining the right balance to ensure our bodies function optimally. Beyond this, certain types of carbohydrates, known as dietary fiber, help prevent digestive diseases and can play a role in weight control. Carbohydrates are not just energy providers. Their classification is another fascinating aspect. Ever wondered how many types of carbohydrates exist? Let's dive in and explore this fascinating world. There are three main types of carbohydrates: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Starting with monosaccharides, they are the simplest form of carbohydrates and consist of a single sugar molecule. Examples include glucose, fructose, and galactose. Glucose, often referred to as blood sugar, is the body's main source of energy. Fructose, on the other hand, is found in fruits and honey, while galactose is a component of milk sugar. Next up, we have disaccharides. As the name suggests, these are composed of two monosaccharide molecules. The most common disaccharides include sucrose, lactose, and maltose. Sucrose, also known as table sugar, is made up of glucose and fructose. Lactose, the sugar found in milk, is composed of glucose and galactose. Maltose or malt sugar is produced during the fermentation process and is a combination of two glucose molecules. Last but certainly not least, we have polysaccharides. These are complex carbohydrates composed of long chains of monosaccharide units. The most common polysaccharides include starch, glycogen, cellulose, and chitin. Starch, found in foods like potatoes and rice, is a storage form of energy in plants. Glycogen is the storage form of energy in animals, while cellulose provides structural support in plant cell walls. Chitin, on the other hand, is found in the exoskeletons of insects and crustaceans. It's important to note that each of these carbohydrates has a distinct role in our nutrition and overall health. For example, while monosaccharides and disaccharides provide quick energy, polysaccharides are essential for long-term energy storage and provide structural support to cells. So, there you have it, the three main types of carbohydrates: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, each with their own unique sources and functions. Each type of carbohydrate has a unique way of getting digested in our body. Want to know how? Keep watching. How does our body break down these carbohydrates, you may wonder? Well, let's delve into this fascinating process. The digestion of carbohydrates begins the moment you take that first bite of your favorite carb-loaded dish. As you chew, your teeth grind the food into smaller particles, making it easier for the enzymes in your saliva to get to work. This enzyme, called salivary amylase, starts the process of breaking down complex carbohydrates into simpler sugars right there in your mouth. Once you swallow, the chewed food, now known as bolus, travels down your esophagus and lands in your stomach. Here, an interesting thing happens. The acidic environment in the stomach halts the activity of salivary amylase. No significant carbohydrate digestion occurs here, but don't worry, the process is far from over. The partially digested food then enters the small intestine. This is where the magic really happens. The pancreas releases an enzyme called pancreatic amylase into the small intestine. This enzyme further breaks down the remaining carbohydrates into disaccharides and oligosaccharides. But we're not quite finished. The cells lining the small intestine secrete enzymes known as brush border enzymes. These enzymes include maltase, sucrase, and lactase, each responsible for breaking down a specific type of disaccharide into monosaccharides, the simplest form of sugar. Finally, these monosaccharides, mainly glucose, are absorbed through the walls of the small intestine and into the bloodstream. This glucose will then be transported to the cells throughout the body, providing the energy we need to function each day. So, from that first bite to the absorption of glucose in your bloodstream, the digestion of carbohydrates is a series of biochemical reactions involving several organs and enzymes. Each step is crucial to ensure that your body gets the energy it needs from the carbohydrates you consume. Digestion of carbohydrates is a complex process. Let's break it down further. Did you know that the digestion of carbohydrates starts in our mouth? Indeed, the process begins the moment we bite into that delicious piece of bread or fruit. As we chew, our teeth crush the food into smaller pieces, increasing the surface area for enzymes to work on. At the same time, the salivary glands in our mouth secrete saliva, a fluid that moistens the food and makes it easier to swallow. But saliva isn't just a lubricant. It also contains an enzyme called salivary amylase, which starts the breakdown of carbohydrates right there in the mouth and buccal cavity. Salivary amylase targets the bonds in starch, a complex carbohydrate, breaking it down into simpler sugars. This enzymatic action transforms starchy foods into a sweet-tasting mush that's ready to be swallowed and further digested. And so, with each bite we take, we initiate the complex process of carbohydrate digestion. But that's not all. The process continues in our stomach. What happens to carbohydrates once they reach our stomach? You might think that the stomach, being so crucial to digestion, would be the main stage for carbohydrate breakdown. But surprisingly, that's not quite the case. When carbohydrates arrive in the stomach, the process of digestion actually slows down. This is due to the acidic environment inside the stomach, which inhibits the action of the enzyme amylase that we introduced earlier. Amylase, remember, is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates into simpler sugars. But don't worry, this is not the end of the road for our carbohydrates. While the stomach does its job of churning and mixing the food with gastric juices, the carbohydrates patiently wait for their turn. As the food moves into the small intestine, the pH rises, providing a conducive environment for carbohydrate digestion to resume. The small intestine plays a vital role in carbohydrate digestion. Let's find out how. Ever thought about what happens to carbohydrates in our small intestine? Well, the small intestine is where the real magic happens. This is the grand stage, where carbohydrates are broken down into their simplest form, glucose. This process is all thanks to an ensemble of enzymes, each playing a critical role in the digestion of carbohydrates. The first act begins with pancreatic amylase, an enzyme that continues the job started by salivary amylase in the mouth. This enzyme breaks down the remaining carbohydrates into maltose, a simple sugar. But the show doesn't stop there. Next, the maltose is further broken down by an enzyme aptly named maltase. Maltase, like a master locksmith, unlocks the two glucose molecules held together in a maltose molecule. Isn't it fascinating how the body has a specific enzyme for each step of the process? Now we have glucose, the simplest form of carbohydrates. But what happens to all this glucose? It doesn't just hang around in the small intestine. It's absorbed into the bloodstream through the intestinal walls, specifically through structures called villi. These villi increase the surface area of the small intestine, making the absorption of nutrients more efficient. The glucose in the bloodstream is like fuel for our body. It provides the energy we need to function, whether it's for running a marathon or simply blinking our eyes. It's like the gasoline that keeps the engine of our body running. However, the body is smart. It only uses as much glucose as it needs and stores the rest for later use, in the form of glycogen in our liver and muscles. This stored energy can be tapped into when our body needs an extra boost, like during a strenuous workout or when we skip a meal. So that's how carbohydrates get digested and absorbed in our body. A complex process indeed, but absolutely vital for our survival and well-being. So, to sum it all up, Carbohydrates are more than just a source of energy. They are a vital part of our daily diet, playing an important role in maintaining our overall health. This complex group of organic compounds, encompassing monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, provides our body with the fuel it needs to function efficiently. The digestion of carbohydrates is a fascinating process that begins in our mouth and buccal cavity, where enzymes start breaking down complex carbs into simpler forms. The journey continues in the stomach and concludes in the small intestine, where the final absorption of carbohydrates occurs. The importance of understanding carbohydrates and their digestion process cannot be overstated. They are the body's primary energy source, and their effective digestion and absorption are crucial for our well-being. And that, folks, is the journey of carbohydrates in our